Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Sarah Jean Barrett, and I'm joined with Dr. Aiden for today's Curiosity Corner. We are going to cover the Huberman Lab podcast episode from October of 2024, titled The Effects of Microplastics on Your Health and How to Avoid Them. The podcast episode itself was rather long, it's an hour and a half, and we think that he could have taken a stronger stance on the dangers of microplastics that they pose to human health. Dr. Aiden and I are actually going to run through what are microplastics, the potential dangers, and what we can do about it. Microplastics are tiny little plastic particles, less than 5 millimeters in size. They could either be a primary microplastic, so they were manufactured to be small, like those little beads in cosmetics, or more commonly, the secondary microplastics. So they're broken down from larger, like plastic bags or bottles. We're worried about them because these little microplastics get into our body and they're so small that they can cross our blood-brain barrier, get into our brain, and get into pretty much every tissue in our body.
Yes, it is concerning, especially given where we know that these microplastics can kind of accumulate. Dr. Barrett just mentioned the brain, the nervous system, and it can have a profound impact on the progression of neurodegenerative diseases, but also fertility outcomes too, because we know that these microplastics can aggregate in both the testes and the ovaries as well. Just to kind of paint into context, like especially those groups, are ones that I would highly encourage kind of tune in if you're looking to conceive. This is something to have on your radar.
And these microplastics, it's easy to get really worked up because they're kind of everywhere. They're in the air we breathe, they're in our oceans, so they're in our food supply. There's different opinions about how much microplastics we are exposed to. Some people say, I think it was we get a credit card's worth in a year. Other people say, no, it would take many, many, many years to accumulate that much. But either way, we're being exposed. I'm sure you've heard about the dangers of plastics, right? You've probably heard about BPA, which is a component that's in plastics, and it's an endocrine disruptor. So it disrupts our hormones. There's also phthalates, another buzzword you probably heard of that is linked to all sorts of things from fertility issues, like Dr. Aiden mentioned, even developmental disorders. And these plastics can also trigger more inflammation and oxidative stress in our tissues. The fact that they penetrate so deeply into our tissues and organs is concerning because we don't know what actions they'll have in those places. Again, we know BPA and phthalates are endocrine disruptors, but we don't know everything there is to know about plastics and how they affect human health. But we know that plastics are human made. They're not natural. So our bodies don't really know how to handle these microplastics that are entering our system.
We can't fully avoid it, but again, there are things we can do to kind of minimize our body burden and try to support our systems of detox. So I think we'll dive into that. And we educate patients on this all the time, but reducing the amount of plastics in general that you're using, and water bottles in particular are a very common one. Also, like he highlighted, cans are often BPA lined as well. So just to kind of read labels and be your own advocate to try to find either some that say BPA, BPS, phthalate free. I mean, we can't avoid it entirely, but thinking of like that 1% interest over time, like it can accumulate. Other sources could include things like I don't know, like our clothes or water supply, like he mentioned, to getting, if it's affordable for you, a reverse osmosis water filter that can clear out some of the plastics too. That's really not necessarily realistic for everybody. But even just not heating things in plastic can be a big way to avoid some of this exposure as well.
Yeah. After he talked about microplastics in our tap water, which I hadn't really thought about, it made so much sense explaining, how they're in our clothing. And then, like you said, doing our laundry, we're putting all these microplastics into our water supply. I use a Berkey, and I was like, does the Berkey remove microplastics? And on their website, it says that it does remove microplastics, which was a relief to me to see that. And it's much less expensive than an RO machine. The other thing he pointed out is microwave popcorn. Those bags that I know I used growing up that you just pop in the microwave and it pops up in the bag. Another huge exposure of microplastics. I also want to just really emphasize like you said, the single-use water bottles. It's more expensive for you to do that. And the numbers he was quoting in the podcast were pretty astounding at how much microplastic exposure you can get from that bottled water. The only other thing I would note is that heating food in plastic storage containers is a big deal. But also, the numbers I've seen are it's 7 times through a dishwasher that a plastic container will start to break down. So I think a lot of patients do think like, well, I'm storing food in plastic, but I'm not heating it in the microwave, so it's fine. Your dishwasher gets pretty hot and it starts to degrade that plastic. So I'm pretty sure it's 7 runs through a dishwasher before it starts to leach. So it's a good investment in your health to look for, again, stainless steel, glass, kind of Pyrex containers to store food in.
And he also kind of highlighted the like single-use coffee cups too that you get like at your local cafe, just to be mindful of those as well, and maybe bring your own stainless steel option to fill too. It's more sustainable anyway.
The elimination part of how do we get these microplastics out of our body, there's that one we don't have a lot of research on yet. It's a newer thing that we're being exposed to. And so Dr. Aiden and I dug into the research a little bit before recording this to kind of see what else can we learn about what do we know for how to get microplastics out of our tissues. I think focusing on the detox support that we already know about that we'll cover in detail of how do we really detoxify at a simple level when it's lodged in our organs, there's likely not great ways to remove them.
Again, we're kind of extrapolating a little bit, but based on how we know the liver and kidney detox things, NAC or N-acetylcysteine is really helpful in promoting glutathione production, which we have learned that microplastics can deplete glutathione, which is really important in helping, properly metabolize in phase 2 detox. So that can help just kind of promote that a bit, that production a bit more. So again, the liver can help clean and clear out any of the particles on the plastics too, and just some of the like the phthalates and things like that. I also really like milk thistle. I know, Sarah-Jean, you use that one as well. Any others that you really like?
I want to just say glutathione is one of my most favorites. And I really like liposomal glutathione. I think that's a really excellent delivery method. So it's bound to some fats. You hold it in your mouth for 30 to 90 seconds and you get rapid blood absorption. And we should back up and say that glutathione is made in our liver and it's our major antioxidant. It's part of the big cleanup crew that helps clean up so much in our body. And so it is easily depleted by many things, including microplastics. So I would say NAC, one of my favorites, just like yours. And then I would add selenium to the list because selenium is going to help your body turn that NAC into glutathione.
And outside of supplementation too, I mean, the skin is a big detox organ. So I know Dr. Huberman mentioned this as well, but just getting a good sweat going can also be helpful in supporting elimination of some of these things. So like whether that's through sauna or exercise, those are great options to kind of help get the lymph and sweat kind of moving.
We're saying this last, but it's probably one of the most important things for detox is you want to eat a really plant-forward diet. Lots of cruciferous vegetables. I know Dr. Huberman mentioned that he doesn't love cruciferous vegetables, and so he focuses more on taking some sulforaphane in supplement form, but you can get sulforaphane in really high amounts from eating just 2 tablespoons of broccoli sprouts, cabbage, collard greens. You're going to get it from cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. There's so many in that family. Garlic's also a great source. And prioritizing soluble fiber in your diet. So flaxseed, chia seeds, even if you need to add some psyllium husk, it's going to help as well because we need those plants to really power phase 2 in our liver detoxification. And then the fiber to kind of grab all of that and pull it out through our stool.
I love that you brought up the cruciferous veggies. I also love to encourage artichokes for a couple reasons. So good from a fiber standpoint, but they also do support our bile flow, which can be really helpful too, based on how we know that we eliminate other toxins too is through fats and through the stool. It just may be a nice support as well.
We have kind of a stranger one. This wasn't covered in the podcast. We found it more when we went to the research. But blood and plasma donation may be a way to reduce microplastics that are in the bloodstream.
I'm curious to see where that goes because yeah, if we can clean that and get those microplastics out of there, that's sounds like a win-win.
Absolutely. So while we don't want to be alarmist, about how much exposure we have to microplastics, it is significant. And even though, again, we don't have a lot of evidence, like hard evidence to say that it's harmful, I'm confident that it is harmful to human health.
One small change can make a huge difference, and the interest in either direction can compound. So, good to just do what you can. Absolutely.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.